Have you ever found yourself lying awake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, and wondering what actually happens when the lights go out for the last time? It's the one question we all try to ignore while we're busy living, but it's the one question that never truly leaves us. For many of us, especially if we're just starting to explore faith or maybe even walking away from a rigid church background, the word hell feels like a dark cloud. We've seen the cartoons, a guy in a red suit with a pitchfork. We've heard the street preachers shouting about fire and brimstone on the corner. But then we hear others say, "Oh, a loving God would never do that. It's just a metaphor for a bad day or a state of mind." So, which is it? Is hell a literal zip code in the afterlife? Or is it just a scary story designed to keep people in line? The truth is, most of what we think we know about hell doesn't actually come from the Bible. It comes from medieval art, Hollywood movies, and tradition. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain. We aren't looking for the churchy answer. We're looking for the truth. What if the reality of hell is actually more sobering, and yet reveals more about God's respect for your free will than you ever imagined? If you're feeling a bit uneasy right now, I'm right there with you. This is arguably the most difficult topic in the entire Christian faith. It's the elephant in the room. If God is supposed to be good news, why does the bad news sound so terrifying? For a beginner, this topic is a massive stumbling block. You might be thinking, how can I love a God who would even allow such a place to exist? This confusion often leads people to one of two extremes. They either become terrified and live a life of performance-based fear, or they decide the whole thing is a myth and walk away from God entirely. But we have to talk about it because it changes everything about how we see God, ourselves, and the value of our choices. If we get hell wrong, we actually end up getting God's love wrong, too. You cannot fully appreciate the rescue if you don't understand what you're being rescued from. We're going to look at this not to scare anyone, but because you deserve an honest, biblically grounded answer that doesn't insult your intelligence. To understand hell, we have to look at the words the Bible actually uses, because in our English translations we often use one word, hell, to translate 3 or 4 very different concepts. First, let's look at how Jesus talked about it. In Mark 9, verse 43, Jesus uses the word Gehenna. To the people listening to him, Gehenna wasn't a mystical dimension. It was a physical place they could see. It was the Hinnom Valley outside the walls of Jerusalem. Historically, it was a place where horrific things happened, and in Jesus' time it was the city's smoldering trash dump. It was a place of unquenchable fire and decay. By using this word, Jesus was painting a vivid picture. Hell is the place where things go when they are no longer functioning for their intended purpose. It's the ultimate discard pile of the universe. Second, we see the word Sheol in the Old Testament, like in Psalm 16 verse 10. This is a Hebrew word that simply means the grave or the realm of the dead. It wasn't necessarily a place of fire, but a place of silence and separation. But the most defining description comes from the Apostle Paul in 2 Thessalonians 1 verse 9. He says, "They will suffer the punishment of eternal destruction, away from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his might." This is the truth bomb we have to grapple with. The primary characteristic of hell isn't the presence of fire. It is the absolute absence of God. In the Greek, the word for destruction here is olethros. It doesn't mean extinction, like you just stop existing. It means the ruin of something. Think of a beautiful vase that is shattered. It still exists, but its purpose and its beauty are gone. Hell is the state of being completely unmade by being separated from the only source of life, light, and love. If God is the source of all beauty, all joy, all friendship, and all peace, then a place or a state without God would, by definition, be a place of total darkness, isolation, and agony. Whether the fire is literal or a metaphor for a soul that is burning with regret, the reality is the same. Hell is the destination of a life that has successfully pushed God away. To understand how a loving God could send people to such a place, think about a high-end, exclusive party in a beautiful mansion. The host has sent an invitation to everyone in the city. The lights are on, the music is playing, and there is an abundance of food and joy inside. Now, imagine someone who absolutely hates the host. They spent their whole life mocking the host, ignoring his invitations, and insisting they want nothing to do with his rules or his house. When the party starts and the doors are closed, that person stays outside in the dark, cold street. Is the host punishing them by keeping them out? Or is the host simply giving them exactly what they asked for, a life without him? The writer C.S. Lewis once said that the doors of hell are locked from the inside. God doesn't send people to hell in the way a judge sends a criminal to a prison they don't want to go to. Instead, God eventually honors our choice. If a person spends 80 years saying to God, "Leave me alone," God eventually, out of a heartbreaking respect for their free will, says, "Thy will be done." Hell is the great cosmic divorce. It is God finally stepping back and saying, "I will no longer force my presence, my light, or my life upon you." Hell is what happens when you get exactly what you wanted, a universe without God, and you realize too late that God was the only thing making the universe bearable. The biggest objection most of us have is, wait, how can a few decades of sins deserve an eternity of punishment? That doesn't seem to fit the crime. This is where we have to redefine what sin is. We often think of sin as breaking a rule, like a speeding ticket. But biblically, sin is more like a terminal disease or a trajectory. If you are traveling on a ship and you are just 1 degree off course, you won't notice it for the first mile. But if you keep going for 10,000 miles, you end up on a different continent. Hell isn't a punishment for a list of bad deeds. It is the natural conclusion of a soul that is moving away from God. If a soul is in rebellion against the source of life, and that soul is immortal, that rebellion doesn't just stop when the body dies. Without the grace of God to intervene, that soul continues to curve inward on itself, becoming more bitter, more isolated, and more ruined forever. The reason hell is eternal is because the rebellion against God is eternal. Furthermore, we have to consider the value of the victim. If you lie to a toddler, it's bad. If you lie to the government under oath, it's a felony. The weight of the crime is determined by who you are offending. Since God is infinitely holy, infinitely good, and the creator of all things, to reject him is a crime of infinite proportions. It sounds harsh to our modern ears, but it actually highlights how incredibly valuable and holy God truly is. So, what do we do with this? If hell is the reality of being separated from God, it changes how we view our lives right now. Hell is a current reality, as much as a future destination. You don't have to wait until you die to experience hells on earth. Whenever we choose hate over love, greed over generosity, or ourselves over God, we are tasting a sip of that separation. The goal of the Christian life isn't just staying out of hell later. It's letting God's kingdom invade your life right now. It means inviting the source of life into your marriage, your work, and your thought life today. It highlights the staggering beauty of the cross. When you realize what is at stake, the gospel, the good news, becomes explosive. Jesus didn't just come to give us good advice on how to be nice people. He came on a search and rescue mission. On the cross, Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" In that moment, Jesus experienced the hell of separation from the Father so that you and I would never have to. The weight of hell shows us the height of God's love. It gives our choices weight. If there is no hell, then your choices don't actually matter. If everyone ends up in the same place regardless of whether they loved God or hated him, then human dignity is a myth. The existence of hell means that your yes and your no to God are the most important things about you. You are a being of such immense value that God will not even override your choice to reject him. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, don't live in fear. Live in gratitude. Look at the sunrise and realize that the God who made it loves you so much that he died to keep you with him. But he loves you enough to let you walk away if you choose. Today is another opportunity to turn your ship toward the light. This is a heavy topic, and I'm sure you have thoughts or maybe even more questions. This is a safe place to wrestle with these things. Question of the day. Before today, did you view hell more as a punishment from an angry God or as a choice made by humans? How does changing that perspective change how you feel about God? Let's talk about it in the comments below. I try to read as many as I can because your journey matters to me. If this video helped clarify some of the church jargon or the scary images you've grown up with, please hit that subscribe button. We're tearing down the walls and looking for the heart of God together. Thanks for being a fellow traveler with me today. Remember, you are loved, you are seen, and the door is always open. I'll see you in the next one.